Hello and welcome to I24 News Sports Daily Magazine with all the latest scores and stories from the world of sports. And there's plenty of action coming your way with an incredible result in the Madrid derby, a giant match coming up in the French league, and a rather crazy couple that decided to cross Antarctica on their own by foot. All this and much more coming up. Let's get started. We begin in Spain, and it was not too long ago when Atletico just couldn't beat Real in the Madrid derby. For 14 long years, they've not even won one Clásico Madrileño, but everything has changed now. They won 3 and drew the other 2 earlier this season, and number 6 was much more than just a win. What you're seeing is not a mistake. Atletico humiliated Real. It ended 4-0, only 4-0 we should say, as the Colchoneros were by far the better side on the pitch of the Vicente Calderón. Thiago, Saúl, Griezmann and Mandzukic scored for the home side. And yes, Real were missing Pepe and Sergio Ramos on defense, but nothing can serve as an excuse for such a result. Manager Carlo Ancelotti knows his team just did not show up.
I have to take responsibility for this match. This is the worst match of Real Madrid while I've been sitting on the bench. We didn't have cool heads. We intended to change the attitude for this game, but we can't rest or be the same in our thinking about the league. We don't have to say much about the loss.
And this result is obviously good news for Barcelona, who travels tonight to Bilbao with the aim of cutting Real's lead at the top to just 1 point. The Blaugranas won their last 8 matches, and that big crisis from the beginning of last month seems now to be just a bad memory. Leo Messi is back to his scoring form, step by step, closing the gap from Ronaldo at the top of the Pichichi. Neymar is not far behind either, but manager Luis Enrique is well aware of the fact that matches against Bilbao at the San Mamés are never easy.
It is a complicated team, a team that puts a lot of pressure on their rivals. They won't give us the ball easily. It is a team that plays in narrow spaces. They have a good aerial game, and it will put us in danger with set plays. In the end, it is a team that can make it very difficult for us.
On to the Premier League, and even if there's still some time to go, this could have very well been the weekend that decided who the next champions will be. Manchester City was trailing Chelsea by 5 points ahead of the weekend, and they only managed a 1-1 draw at home with Hull City, and they're even lucky to have gotten that 1 point as James Milner gave them a stoppage time equalizer. Chelsea, on the other hand, beat Aston Villa 2-1 and now opened a 7-point gap at the top. And in Goodison Park, the last Merseyside derby for Steven Gerrard was a disappointing affair. No goals between Everton and Liverpool. Manchester United plays on Sunday against West Ham. Ahead of the match, the Red Devils had a memorial ceremony for the players killed in the biggest tragedy the club experienced. Friday marked the 57th anniversary of the Munich air disaster, in which a plane crashed on the runway at Munich airport and killed 23 people, including 8 of the Busby babes. Manager Louis van Gaal laid flowers at the memorial located at the east end of Old Trafford Stadium. Several fans were also in attendance to pay their respects. Bundesliga now, and Dortmund desperately needed a win to give them some air in the fight against relegation. We all know this team is far too good to be in the last place of the German league, and finally they were able to show all their talent when they traveled to Freiburg, and by talent we mean especially Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The striker from Gabon was simply everywhere. He came with a steal and a setup for Marco Reus in the first half. After the break, he did it all himself. He scored the second 10 minutes into the second half. Later on, we saw how good Dortmund really is. The beautiful team play by the visitors ends with Aubameyang doing it again. Dortmund win 3-0. They're still in relegation zone, but at least they're out of the last place. French League now, and ahead of the season, very few people thought Lyon would be the main title rival for Paris Saint-Germain. But deep into the season, the team from Eastern France is first, and the champions are only third. The Parisians will travel to Lyon tonight on a crucial match for them. They know that if they lose, Lyon will open a 5-point gap at the top. PSG have been far from impressive since the return from the winter break, but they did win their last 3 matches, and, as always, Zlatan Ibrahimovic will be the man in focus. He has been sick for the past few days, but Lyon's Christophe Jallet, who played with Zlatan last season in PSG, knows that leaving him out of sight for 1 second may cost Lyon the match.
He's a genius. Even if you don't see him every moment during 90 minutes, he's capable of scoring in a flash and giving victory to his team. I know him well, and I know what we must not do Sunday night with this kind of danger. Sometimes knowing it is not enough. They played together until last season with Paris Saint-Germain. We are all warned that this player is impressive, and we must watch him very closely until the 95th minute.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic has had the virus that you mentioned. I hope to see him this afternoon in form, as was the case yesterday. There is no reason for him to be absent from the squad tomorrow in Lyon.
Now to the African Cup of Nations, where it is time for the big final. For years, the Ivory Coast is seen as Africa's strongest team with many players in the top teams in Europe, but so far they only won the African Cup once. They're favorites to do it tonight for the second time, but Ghana, led by Israeli manager Avram Grant, will be a very tough opponent.
When Ghana face Ivory Coast in the final of the Africa Cup of Nations on Sunday, the two teams will be hoping to let the football do the talking. Violence between supporters in the semis when Ghana beat host nation Equatorial Guinea 3-0 has cast a shadow over the tournament and took some of the shine off a competition organised against the odds in just 50 days after Morocco pulled out because of fears over the Ebola epidemic.
The focus should be on Ghana's win, and now we are talking about violence. It's very, very unfortunate. I think the government of Equatorial Guinea has done very well.
Originally considered outsiders, Ghana haven't conceded a single goal in the knockout stages, putting 3 past Guinea in the quarters before beating the hosts by the same margin. The Black Stars are now 1 win away from their 5th continental title.
Before the tournament, nobody gave us a chance. Everybody spoke at least about other 5 teams that are better than us. And now we are in the final against a very good team, so we want to win the cup.
To be crowned champions, they'll need to beat Ivory Coast. After a sluggish start, the Elephants are now the favourites to win. They glided through the knockouts, beating Algeria and then the Democratic Republic of Congo, both with a 3-1 scoreline.
We've had to tighten our game, but it hasn't been very difficult because I'm working with fantastic guys. I've often heard that they were a difficult team to manage, but I can tell you from the inside that they're very easy. I hope for them that they'll finally win an international title.
Ivory Coast have only won AFCON once, back in 1992, also against Ghana. After a goalless draw, they were victorious in a nail-biting marathon penalty shootout, 11 goals to 10. Organisers, players and fans will be hoping any repeat of such drama happens on and not off the pitch.
Apart from that violent incident in the semi-final, Equatorial Guinea did a very good job hosting, especially considering the fact they only had 2 months to prepare. The original host, who backed off due to fear of the Ebola virus, was severely punished by the African Federation. After being ejected from this year's tournament, Morocco have now been banned from the next 2 African Nations Cup tournaments. The Moroccan Federation has also been ordered to pay $9 million in damages to the African Federation and a $1 million fine. The African Federation rejected claims of force majeure from Morocco and found it financially liable for the decision to withdraw from hosting the Games. Crossing Antarctica by foot, carrying all your equipment on you. Sounds crazy? Well, some people are crazy enough to do it. Liz Barnbaum and Michael Friedman bring their story.
This was an expedition of a lifetime. Traveling more than 2,000 kilometers in 73 days with temperatures sometimes verging on negative 50 degrees, a French couple decided to undertake the longest ski unassisted crossing of Antarctica. Stephanie and Jeremiah Jiquel collected more than 8,000 euros for the Associated Petits Princess, an organization whose purpose is to make dreams of children and adolescents with serious diseases come true. The two also answered questions from students during their journey, as it is such a rarity for one to experience the great Antarctica.
We never sought isolation. We were confronted with an infinite silence, with infinite space, which was magical, magnificent. We saw landscapes which were immense, but we were not looking for this isolation. We really wanted to share an adventure to make a little bit more accessible this continent that is so inaccessible.
Jeremiah's wife was especially amazed by the nature and feeling in the outdoors. This quiet continent left her truly in a state of peace and thinking about the wonders of the world.
In Antarctica, I became aware of the vastness of our land, to the point that I felt no longer on Earth at times. Because it is huge, there's no noise. The wind does not sound contrary to popular belief. The wind makes noise, but we make no noise. If not for the cold and extremely far distance, we can see for hundreds of miles.
But a challenge like this is truly demanding and is not easy to complete. With frostbite, a virus, a broken tent, and other challenges along the way, the two had to really push hard throughout and keep their morale high.
It was quite hard early in the expedition. I was wondering if I could make the number of miles required per day and complete the crossing on time. It was mostly my doubt that I couldn't do the number of kilometers each day. Then after a week it was better, and then we had more doubt to whether we would finish.
Jeremiah and Stephanie Jiquel have achieved something truly special. This unique journey was an unimaginable adventure, something they'll remember forever.
Marc Marquez has been dominating the world of Moto GP in the past 2 years, and judging by the first preseason training, 2015 will look exactly the same. The young Spaniard recorded the fastest lap in the first day of practice in Malaysia. Teammate Dani Pedrosa had the second fastest time. There's still some time until the beginning of the new season, which will kick off at the end of March in Qatar. And Marquez can feel very good with his performance, but he also knows there's still a lot of work to be done on his new bike.
I try many things during the race on the electronics for try to understand well. And we get a lot of information that is the most important. Of course, we had some problems on the race simulation, but this is important. We did the race simulation for this. And for the next test, I look forward to improve in some things because I think still we have a good potential, we have a good bike, but still we can improve.
When we think of sumo, we think only of men on the ring, but it's not always like that. It's still a very masculine sport, and yet more and more women are now joining in, but their fight is not only against their opponents, but also a fight for recognition.
Sumo, a cornerstone of Japanese culture. Sayaka Matsuo is one of a handful of women practicing the ancient sport, normally associated with men. Daughter of a professional wrestler, she first entered the ring aged 5. Now it's her passion.
The initial collision is the hardest thing. It hurts and it's easy to injure yourself. But if you don't practice, you can't become strong. It's the exercise I have the hardest time with.
Linked to the Shinto religion, the history of sumo wrestling stretches back some 2,000 years. Tradition, though, forbids women from setting foot on the sacred ground of the Kokugikan Arena in Tokyo, where official competitions take place. But since 1997, female wrestlers have been allowed to take part in amateur bouts. There are even calls for women's sumo, along with the male version, to become an Olympic sport, though there is little chance this could happen in time for the Tokyo Games in 2020.
When you think of sumo, you think of a sport reserved for fat men. We need to change this and show the world that women can also take part and appreciate the sport, and we will have more participating.
A recent recruit is Anna Fujita. She started sumo 2 years ago and hasn't looked back since. She competes in the under 65 kilos category and dreams of changing perceptions and one day wrestling at Kokugikan.
My principal challenge was to integrate myself and practice sumo with a group of men. It is still hard to erase the differences between the sexes, but it is the only thing to do. We need to alter the mindset in Japan.
Despite recent progress, boys still outnumber girls by 300 or so to 1 in junior sumo competitions, signalling that the fight for women's recognition in the ring is far from won.
We know there's no place like home. It's true, of course, also for sports, even for ski jumping. Germany's Severin Freund won a second successive ski jumping World Cup event in front of his home crowd on Saturday. Freund's effort of 138.5 meters was 3 meters short of Peter Previch's jump, but the German claimed the lead at the halfway point on 145.5 points by virtue of his superior style. It was a fourth victory of the World Cup season for Freund and second in succession, following his first place finish in Willingen, also in Germany, last Sunday. And we'll finish our show with the ice cross downhill race held in Finland, and it was the greatest day in the career of Scott Croxall. The Canadian won the first ice race of his career on Saturday, holding off a series of ferocious charges by defending world champion Marco Delago of Austria and American Cameron Assaz in a breathtaking final. Croxall got off to a flying start and grabbed a small early lead at the first 9 of 9 corners and showed remarkable composure for the first time in the finals, not letting any of his rivals pass him. And that's it for us today. Don't forget, you can watch this and every other show on our website at i24news.tv. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for Talking Football. Till then, have a beautiful day.